Shalom, shalom again, brethren. I'm sharing another lesson study with you, and it is entitled Repairing the Breach, Part 1. This image is a visual of a breach that has occurred in a house. The breach, however, that we will be addressing is the breach that has occurred in the house of Israel, or better known as the nation of Israel. In the Strong's Concordance, exhaustive concordance of the Bible, we find the word breach properly explained from its Hebraic etymology. The following visual will support the information. This is what Moses said to Israel on that day. In Deuteronomy chapter 30, we read, "And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither Yahuah thy Elohim have driven thee, and shalt return unto Yahuah thy Elohim, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou, thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that then Yahuah thy Elohim will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither Yahuah thy Elohim have scattered thee." So we see here that the only way that we can truly be delivered is if we actually engage in returning to Yahuah the way that he wants us to return to him, not the way that we see fit. He goes on to read Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 4. He says, "If any of thine be driven out unto the uttermost parts of heaven, from thence will Yahuah thy Elohim gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And Yahuah thy Elohim will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers." So here we see that it is of Yahuah's doing that we will return into that land. Not of man's doing, not of the Balfour Declaration. It will be of Yahuah's doing. He himself says he will fetch us. Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 6 goes on to read, "And Yahuah thy Elohim will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love Yahuah thy Elohim with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And Yahuah thy Elohim will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and upon them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yahuah, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day." If we pay close attention to what's going on in the world today, we will see that the curses are gradually lifting off of the nation of Israel, and that the curses are now attacking much of the nations that have persecuted Israel. Here's a hint. Look at what's going on in the daughter of Babylon, that north country called America. Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 9, "And Yahuah thy Elohim will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land, for good, For Yahuah will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. We do not see any rejoicing over the peoples that are living in the land of Israel today in 2020 who call themselves Jews. We do not see any rejoicing by Yahuah over those people. Presently, the land, Israel, is filled with abominations. Here's another hint. What is Mystery Babylon? Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 10. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahuah thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the Torah, and if thou turn unto Yahuah thy Elohim with all thine heart and with all thy soul. For this commandment which I command thee this day, it is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, that thou shouldest say, who shall go up for us to heaven, and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea, that thou shouldest say, who shall go over the sea for us, and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. Brethren, the world over has so many different translations of the scriptures in the lands where Israel was scattered. And once you set your mind and your heart to follow Yahuah, surely he will engage his Ruach to guide us, you and I, into all truth, especially when it comes to restoring the breach and repairing the paths to dwell in. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 14. But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thine heart, that thou mayest do it. In other words, it's in our DNA. It is, after all, Israel to whom the oracles of Yahuah were committed. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 15. See, I have set before thee this day life and good, death and evil, in that I command thee this day to love Yahuah thy Elohim, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments, and his statutes, and his judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply, and Yahuah thy Elohim shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. But if thine heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but shalt be drawn away, and worship other mighty ones, and serve them, I denounce unto you this day, that ye shall surely perish, and that ye shall not prolong your days upon the land whither thou passest over Jordan to go to possess it. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live, that thou mayest love Yahuah thy Elohim, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life, and the length of thy days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which Yahuah sware unto thy fathers, Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to give to them. So here we see, brethren, clearly what Moses spoke to the children of Israel on that new moon day in winter, the first winter after they left out of the land of Mitzrayim. Repairing the breach and restoring the paths to dwell in begins when we can acknowledge what was written in Deuteronomy chapter 30 and what we have to fulfill as written in Deuteronomy chapter 30. when we see and understand that all of these curses that were placed upon us, as written in Deuteronomy chapter 28, has occurred, now we have to understand the time has come where the curses will depart from us and cleave to those who have oppressed us. Because now we're taking up our rightful places before Yahuah. And those who have cleaved unto the house of Israel are included in this inheritance. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, we see Moses telling Israel what will happen to them in the future and their generations that were yet to come as a result of the blessing and the curse which he spoke of and recorded in Deuteronomy chapter 28. This record occurred in the 40th year on the first day of the 11th month. In other words, this was done on the new moon day of the 11th month in winter, after Israel had exited the land of Mitzrayim. Now, brethren, in the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, verse 12, we read, "And they that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt raise up the foundations of many generations, and thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the paths to dwell in." Brethren, those of us who have taken upon ourselves the Berean approach, we, though we be few, though we be thousands and not millions or billions, we are the restorers of the paths of the breach. So let us endeavor to find out, what is this breach? What are the paths that we have to restore in order to dwell in before Yahuah? So as you can firmly see, repairing the breach begins when we return unto Yahuah our Elohim to obey his voice according to all that Moses commanded us and our children with all our hearts. Brethren, this is what we are presently witnessing going on throughout the four corners of the earth, where Yahuah scattered us. Some of the things which the returnees are obeying are the true scriptural calendar, which is found in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to verse 18, which tells us that the luminaries, the sun, the moon, and the stars are the time measuring instruments and signs that Yahuah has placed there for us to utilize. We can read this also in Ecclesiasticus chapter 43 verse 2 to 9, where it says, "The sun, when it appeareth, declaring at his rising a marvelous instrument, the work of the Most High. At noon it parcheth the country, and who can abide the burning heat thereof? A man blowing a furnace is in works of heat, but the sun burneth the mountains 3 times more, breathing out fiery vapors, and sending forth bright beams. It dimmeth the eyes. Great is Yahuah that made it, and at his command it runneth hastily. He made the moon also to serve in her season, for a declaration of times, and a sign of the world. From the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreases in her perfection. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of the Shemayim, the beauty of the Shemayim, the glory of the stars, an ornament giving light in the highest places of Yahuah. So again, brethren, we can see that these luminaries were indeed created by Yahuah and placed in the Shemayim for specific reasons: to divide the day from the night, to be for signs, to be for seasons, and for days, and for years, and to be light in the firmament of heaven, to give light upon the earth. Yes, brethren. Oh yes, brethren. In addition to the aforementioned information, returnees have forsaken world religions, be it Spiritism, Baha'i, Sikhism, Naturist, African traditional religion, Humanist, Buddhism, Chinese traditional religion, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and of more recently, the two newcomers, which are Chrislam, or in other words, Romanish Christianity combined with Islam, and of course, capitalism. The returnees have forsaken these world religions, abandoning their customs, their traditions, and doctrines. They have refused to uphold the deities and idols of these world religions anymore. And there are now some atheists and others who have never identified with any faith also turning to the way of Yahuah, to serve Yahuah, the true and living Elohim. Because the way of Yahuah is again being made plain and clear to be understood by all who are seeking truth and in turn trying to live out that truth. Brethren, there is much more to be said on the topic of repairing the breach. This has only been part 1 of the lesson study, repairing the breach. And as usual, because I am not a scholar, nor am I highly educated, I always say, corrections are welcome. Critiques also are welcome. Keep them clean, and you may contact me via the YouTube comments section, via my email for those who have my email, and via my WhatsApp for those who have my WhatsApp. Until then, let us aspire to be a part of those who will be accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man when he returns. Shalom. Brethren, this video is a collaborative effort by Brother Mark of the UK and by me here in Barbados. I know on my part that this video would never have been done in the past. However, because of obedience to Yahuah's Ruach, it is a final work, and many others will come to fruition.